Hello and welcome to $10,000 Allie coin TFT tournament, where some of the most popular streamers compete against open qualifier winners. Game number 4.
So with swords, bows, and rods. And so we'll see how that shapes people's game plans. Personally, I feel like in these kinds of openings, it means that anybody can play anything, which is pretty interesting. And so I want to see what people's game plans are. But Soju's been the one who's improvising a lot, and he's actually in the contention for finishing first place at 17 points, which is only 2 points behind second place and 5 behind GV8 in first. And Soju's been putting on quite a show today.
Yeah, for sure. The way he started off with, we saw that really strong game with the mutant and you know, the Yone and Fiora. So that was really good. But yeah, so now we're seeing a different start here, and I do love these offensive carousel starts, especially with a bow on Ezreal. That's been one of my personal favorites. It allows you to go kind of that early scrap. You can get like a Last Whisper. If you can get a glove going, you can get a Hurricane, which is a lot of early game DPS. And you can even see Soju favoring that Ezreal here. If you could get that going, it can be a very powerful start here. It hits the Zyra, doesn't really hit any of the other pairs here, and hopefully we can get it, you know, first glimpse at his augment. That whoa, Prismatic start.
Okay, interesting choices. So he gets 2 crowns and high-end shopping. High-end shopping early on, a lot of people actually consider it to be quite punishing because you actually want a consistency in your pairs to hit. But when you look at Chemtech crowns and you look at Syndicate crowns, do either of them stand out to you in particular, Mort?
Yeah, I actually think Chemtech Crown is very good early. Early game fights are very slow, and so this allows the champions to get that full 8 seconds of value for the extra attack speed, the extra damage reduction. And I think you're going to see here, you know, you can put that on Ezreal, you can put that on extra frontline, hitting 5 Chemtech early. I agree with Soju on this choice. I think this was definitely the right choice. And I think this has been one of the nice things about this patch with the change where that used to be Chemtech Soul. Because having your Ezreal not benefit from the Chemtech Soul here would be very punishing and make that not worth it. But now taking this, and hits a Zac here, that's huge.
That's an incredible start here. And yes, like you said, it gives him a ton of flexibility. I mean, when he finds the ability to put 5 champions in, he has 5 Chemtech that quickly. So a very good start. A quick glance around the lobby. You saw a portable forward with a gold collector, I believe in and gold. A lot of people consider portable forge to be a prismatic that people are less enthusiastic about because it's a little bit more variance than they want. But this is an incredibly powerful start. Gold collector is so strong.
So up until the last patch, if you looked at the item data, gold collector actually broke the graph. It was like so far and away above the rest because again, you just farmed so much extra gold for the rest of the game, and that's not even taking into the power that it has here. But it does require you to play it well, and in this case, you know, farming 0 gold with this gold collector, you really want to see this, you know, farming about 10 gold by the end of the stage, otherwise it's really not worth it. So I kind of want to keep an eye on this lobby and just see how much farming we can get off this gold collector. The other thing to note here is, like, she already locked in the Last Whisper, so switching to this Malzahar feels a little questionable. Malzahar is very good in the early game, but now you're kind of stuck with this Last Whisper. Do you start going Arcanist? That's really dangerous.
Yeah, no Reforger, right? At least not for a while being offered until the PV round at the earliest. Just going to commit to it as best she can because she wants to get the gold. Rue, of course, if you're wondering what's going on with her screen, she is a VTuber. So, you know, these avatars, these little cute icons are a very much big part of her community.
All right, there's a gold.
Gold. At least getting 1, so at least that's a nice consolation prize. And I think I was anticipating Gold Collector to pop off way harder. But when you're going up against things that, you know, people have new recruit, they have an extra 2-star champion in, it just becomes really difficult to handle that much pressure. So is that gold worth it? And we're going to see whether or not Rue's able to capitalize on it, as she alongside Dog have taken nearly full losses.
Yeah, it has basically one extra step, is which the item is good, don't get me wrong, but you need a carry to put it on here. And so the lack of the Ezreal 2, the lack of, you know, Malzahar with good items, Last Whisper not really a traditionally good Malzahar item, unfortunately. And so far, we've only farmed 1 gold, and that's definitely not making it worth it here. Now, I kind of agree with the level up here to try to strengthen the board, because again, your whole point with gold collectors is to try to get these kills, try to get this gold, and come up a lot of, you know, extra gold. On the other side, though, we do see a Mercenary soul on Calflow's side. So that's the kind of thing that can really snowball at the end game here and be very strong.
Yes, and we know that Kurum is a player that needs to go big in order to pull himself back up in the standings. First place might be out of the question, but could he land like into top 3 or top 4? Yeah, it's definitely up for consideration if he has a strong 3 games here. So we'll see whether or not how much he's able to farm off that mercenary, that extra +2 mercenaries. As we do take a look at the carousel, does have a spatula option. I do feel like spatula in general feels a little bit weaker compared to where it was in previous sets. Mort, how do you feel about the state of spatula? As Kerm actually ends up picking it up immediately.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it weak so much as I would call it narrow. In the cases when it's good, it's quite good, right? Like you can go Arcanist Taric, you can go Academy Fiora. Academy Fiora is very good, but it is certainly a lot harder than, say, the old days of like Mage Spatula, put it on anybody, and then double casting is just always good. And so right now, to me, it feels more narrow. I personally always try to take an early Spatula because the odds of getting a Tactician's Crown can be extremely advantageous. You can also use it with Scrap and just have it roll for funsies later. But yeah, we'll have to see if they can convert that. But Challenger is another good one that can be used well. I think really only Imperial is sort of like a bad option, but
yeah, that's totally fair to say. As we take a look at Kiyun and see how he is doing as well, and does have the Thieves Gloves, the Band of Thieves that was able to get him really powerful item tempo. He does have like this Warmox, for example, this Poppy that might single-handedly just win him this fight because Poppy stays alive forever. And has this Ezreal with the Static Shiv able to get it done. Kiyun also in the Kurimex camp needs big results, and they both happen to be in that same lobby coming into game number 5. And I think that this Thieves Gloves is actually quite underrated. I still see people saying like, oh, like I'd rather have these crowns or these crazy augments that can get power. The Thieves Gloves are so strong to really synergize with other things, right? Like Scrap, for example, pulls from all the items that you have. So you get extra items early, you get extra tempo on top of the raw stats that you get from the items. So I really think that Kiyun has a really powerful setup here, and it's not a surprise whatsoever to see him streaking as he does go up against another mercenary board. Oh, man.
Oh, the thing to note about the Thieves Gloves choice is it's kind of like the Gold Collector, actually, in the sense that what it needs is good champions to utilize them. And so if you're running a bunch of 1-star champions, this Thieves Gloves choice is going to be quite terrible, actually. But thankfully, with the 2-star Kassadin and the 2-star Poppy getting a ton of value out of these items, that just gives you a lot of power, because a 2-star champion with 2.5, 3 items is going to feel really, really good. Now, on the other side there, we do see a full loss streak. That is a 5-loss, 5 mercenary box. So that is going to be a very full box. If they can cash out that box, that'll be really interesting to watch. So we'll have to pay attention and see if Clawflow wins a round. And if they do, see what that cash out looks like.
Yep, Clawflow, a player that I believe is playing from the EU region. We did open up qualifiers across the globe, and we did have people outside of North America participate. And it's TFT. It's a game that you can definitely compete cross region without necessarily feeling like it's unplayable due to ping, although it does make it harder. And Clawflow is right now in second place, tied with DQA after a consistent amount of thirds and the second place. So we'll see if that Mercenary Soul can continue to buy him that time or again those points. That'll be interesting because part of the whole point of the amateur in quotation marks, because these players are so good, is to see how they stack up against some of the invited players. And so far, a couple of them are doing fantastic.
Yeah, Kiyun's got to be happy with this board here. So many 2-stars, and we see early game right now is sort of decided by who can get all the 2-stars. The traits aren't really quite as important and multiplicative at this point in the game. Kiyun does go for the power level 3-1, level 6 to try to preserve that win streak. And looking at the other side, should be in a good spot. On the other side, Dog has the Scrap, which is an interesting one because from a design perspective, we weren't sure whether to make this emblems or souls. There's kind of benefits to both. Right now it is the soul, and so he does get that extra Scrap, which is extra shield for his team. But Scrap right now doesn't have as many components, so you don't get quite as much value out of your trait at this point in the game. But man, late game, when you've got 12, 14, 16 components, multiplied by that shield, that can be so much effective extra health that scrap can just be kind of hard to chew through.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because I've never personally taken the scrap option for Prismatic. And I think what you're saying makes sense, which is when you combine all those item components in the late game, the shield is basically like having 5 lockets on your entire team or something obnoxious like that. So I look forward to see how Dog can scale that if he's able to get to that point. Let's check in with Becca and see what she's doing right now. She is playing Featherweights 3 and taking a sip of water because she is going to be re-rolling and trying to make the Protector Kog'Maw build a thing by having Kassadin 3, having Graves and the Garen. And if things can go well, that'll make it a very powerful composition that will power spike pretty easily and then start to really bulldoze comps while they're trying to get online. So I'm curious to see if it ends up being good. A lot of people are quite divided on Protector reroll. Some people consider it to be something they don't ever play, and some people believe that it's still very strong despite getting nerfed repeatedly. Where do you sit on this current spectrum, Mort?
So I think it's funny that Protector reroll to me feels a lot like Yordles right now to me, in the sense that if it's the right game for it, and the game just hands you 6 Kassadins and 3 Kog'Maws and the right items, you should still play it. But if you fall behind curve even a little, you're not going to be able to catch up. It's going to be really, really bad. Like right now, I would say if this Kassadin isn't 3-starred by 3-6, this game's over, right? Like, which wasn't true back in its heyday. It was a lot more powerful. But here, like, you really need to hit and you really need to start leveling and get caught back up in levels to get that late game state. The best versions of these boards, hilariously enough, still end up with a Kaisa in them at level 8 and level 9 because they managed to catch back up using that strong board of 3 costs. But if you're still stuck 3-5, 3-6, 3-7, still rerolling, it's pretty doomed.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's partially why, as a reroll comp, it has survived this long. Let's take a look at the augment choices. 3 choices which are all applicable to what she wants to do. Protector Heart, of course, great for the front line. Mutant Heart, if she wants to go and get that mutant synergy online. Not exactly sure what that trade is off the bat. And there's a handful of people that believe that Sniper's Nest is very powerful, especially if you end up having a Kog'Maw with a Quicksilver. You just put Kog'Maw in the corner, Quicksilver him, and then just have Sniper's Nest to be able to just keep him in place for the entire time. She ends up going for Protector just for the most generic, powerful front line here. Do you feel like that's the right choice here, Mort?
It's hard to say without knowing for sure what the mutant is. For example, if the mutant was the Blade Master variation, I would much more lean into that to get those big procs off of the Kog'Maw. But assuming it was something not particularly valuable, like, say, the Elderwood variation, then I think this is the correct choice. That extra shield and could possibly end up being 5 Protector in the endgame. The jump between 4 and 5 Protector is pretty large. And so having, your Scion, your Garen, your Kassadin get those giant shields can be very valuable in the late game.
It's true. Assuming you even have things like Warmogs as well to help really give Kassadin the scaling. The big problem with Becca's comp right now is that a lot of people believe that the most important item in this comp period is Warmogs on a Kassadin. With, of course, the nod to 1A being Ginsu's Rage Blade on Kog'Maw. But that's assuming you are carrying Kog'Maw. You can see, for example, in Becca's perspective, she doesn't even have Kog'Maw in the composition right now because she's just trying to stop the bleeding as she takes a look at the carousel and see if there's anything that she can pick up. No defensive items? Is this a double offensive item carousel to start things off? It looks like.
So do you remember when I said I always take a spatula early on?
Yes.
This is definitely the kind of game where you would have been very rewarded for taking that spatula early. Because guess what? You just got a free Tactician's Crown, you've got an extra unit, and you've got to feel really good by that. On the other side now, we do see that, the Becca did hit the 3-star Kassadin. No other 3-stars, though. So I'd want to see, again, like maybe 1 or 2 more and then start leveling real quick here.
Yes, I agree. On the other hand, we're taking a look at Koflo, 5 mercenaries, 9-round losing streak. Just want to point that out so far. And this is one of those situations where if he cashes, it is going to be raining.
Ooh. Okay, whenever you see that spatula dice, that's a big roll. I think that was the 50 gold roll.
What?
Yeah, there's a 50 gold roll, and I think he just hit that. So if he cashes out, he's looking at like 50 plus gold here just from that roll alone.
Okay, if he cashes out. Now, this isn't ladder. You don't have people who are going to be letting him cash out easily. People all have the incentive to keep the pressure on. Doesn't put the 2-star Lissandra in for Koflo. That could end up costing him. Going against Kiyun, a player that was playing for Tempo, has some pretty strong board. But Kiyun is only level 6. He didn't level for 7. And this is an opportunity. Misfortune 2 does have some distance with that death cap. Actually, there's a lot with the Morel Namicon.
I think he's got it.
Starting to crack for Kiyun.
I think he's got it.
Open up the opportunity. It is more. We're going to see an epic Mercenary cash out the hands of Kiyun. Okay's business.
That is a big cash out. And like I said, I think that last roll was the 50 gold roll. So let's just watch his gold count here. He is at 8 gold before opening it all up. And got a Thieves Gloves, by the way. Gets a tome. There's the gold.
He
still has the board open.
Doesn't want to take too many in case there's champions in there.
There's the champions.
Wow!
That's a gangplank.
Gold.
And so that was about
86 gold.
Yep.
Holy moly!
And you'll notice he also got a Tactician's Ground, a tome. If this is like, and you're still have 40 health to deal with, this feels so good. Being in this position, the only drawback here is he didn't get a ton of items. That's the only thing that didn't quite go right here. But so he is still running like a Misfortune here. You know, the tome's not going to add a ton of value here. Now, the one thing that, you know, if this were a stream and not like a, you know, competitive environment here, you take the tome, get a Mercenary emblem, and go for 7 Mercenary. Instead, does the right thing, goes for Chemtech. And that does give him 5 Chemtech, which is a nice boost.
Yes. And he's still playing 5 Mercenary, which means that, you know, 5 Mercenary still has the opportunity to just still do well and give you a bunch of resources. So right now he can actually go back into playing a tempo-oriented style, going up against Soju, who is just playing a much weaker variation of the board. And now all of a sudden, the tables have turned. Koflo will be the one applying pressure the opposite way, onwards and upwards. And how will the rest of the lobby respond, knowing that this is the case? Will they continue to try and play for a safer top 4, recognizing that top 1 is that much harder to get? Or were they going to try to greed even harder and see if they can take a bunch of damage? Just hop back on board with Kiyun and check in on him and see how his board's developing.
Yeah, and I'm going to go out on a limb, by the way, and say that that is a first place board that we just left. With that much gold, just got a Thieves Gloves out of the chest. And as you said, can keep playing 5 Mercenary, which will give you an average of like 5 gold a turn, possibly some extra Nikos. That is a very, very good situation to be in.
Absolutely. Things are looking great so far for Koflo. Kiyun still trying to play an efficient board. Everything about his board is efficient. Nothing besides Janna. I guess he does have a 1-star Echo. Costs more than 2 gold in terms of his individual units. He has Thieves Gloves. They're all upgraded. He's playing for scrap. So by all means, he's trying to go for efficiency while racking up his gold. And you can see it, right? He has 51 gold. He's on a 4-round lose streak, and yet he's still pretty healthy. And he's even got units on the bench, and he's winning this fight. So he's doing what I think a lot of players like Mismatched Socks likes to prioritize, which is gold efficiency per unit that's on the board, and then being able to go for a massive roll down and spike. I mean, he's going to have 50 gold at 4-5 and be level 8 with some opportunity to spare. So things are looking very good for Kiyun as well.
Yeah, I think Echo is a unit that a lot of people don't quite realize just how powerful he is, especially with these items. He's applying that backline Frozen Heart. The Morello he applies to a very large group of frontliners. He's giving his entire team attack speed that gets hit by that bubble. He provides a lot of damage, and you look at that, and like it shows the power of Morello early, just how well he contributed to that fight. And you can see here again, Frozen Heart slowing down that front line. There's the Morello applying the burn. Echo is just a very valuable unit, even at 1-star.
Yes, absolutely. That convergence is very, very important to get everything going, especially when he has things like this Rage Blade and Shiv. If you can land that convergence, Ezreal will just go absolutely haywire onto his opponent's board. That being said, Rue actually has a ton of HP. You can just look at it, 2-star bruises across the board, and it looks like Rue has collected a pretty decent amount of gold and is holding Jins on her bench with the Scion. So she's ready for her transition into that board. Dog is looking dead so far. Who else can be joining him in the bot 4, depending on the pressure? Because Catflow's on a win streak. We know that some of the boards we've looked at look pretty strong, and there's still Ray and Kurum who are relatively healthy. So we're about to see a pretty big roll down from Kiyun, and I'm curious to see if he's going to try and pivot to an AP-based composition. He did just take a tier, so he does have the Archangel staff and the Morello, and he does have a Guardian Angel on that Ezreal. So if we can go for that high capped out AP board featuring Kai'Sa or another legendary carry, Kiyun's going to be gunning for that first place.
Yeah, for sure. This is the turn that I think we're going to see a lot of boards, either hit or, not. This is where we're going to see who can stabilize, who can figure out where they're going to be. Because right now it's all about who can beat, Catflow and his incredibly capped, high roll here. So we hit the Fiora, we hit the Seraphine. We've got the 2 Socialite here. I expect Fiora to kind of end up there. I really don't think Tahm Kench 1 being on there is really quite the right play. A little slow to get his items out here, though. Trying really hard.
Yeah, the ironic thing is he put the items that he would put on Seraphine. He put a Thieves' Gloves there instead on the Seraphine, and therefore it doesn't really have a natural place to put the static Shiv. And that's okay for now, because again, he was trying to go for the speed of the transition, and ultimately he's just trying to farm, right? Like he's trying to stabilize. He only lost by 2 units, so not a bad loss whatsoever here for Kiyun. But he does have to make it just a little bit tighter here if he wants to make sure his board can continue to scale up. We get introduced to the last augment. It is a gold, so we have one of each. Kiyun hovering over the idea of Stand Unite or Cybernetic Implants. Both are really powerful just for the actual combat potential, but ends up choosing Cybernetic Implants despite having AP-focused items there. Is this a nod to the fact that he has Thieves' Gloves and he's just spreading around the components in Tahm Kench?
I think he's valuing the extra HP on his units here, as opposed to the extra offensive power. The extra HP will allow the front line to stay alive a little longer, allows Fiora to stay alive a little longer. I did want to call out, though, that I've seen this pattern of people building Archangels on Tahm Kench, and I think that is one of the worst items you can put on Tahm Kench. He already gets enough AP scaling as people feed him. He doesn't really need that extra AP. Now, that being said, the more likely outcome here, though, and why I agree with it in this case, is that Kiyun is probably using this as an item holder for that Fiora. He's looking, or excuse me, like Kai'Sa. Because he's got the Fiora, he's definitely going to go Challenger. He's looking for that Kai'Sa to eventually build that into. And so that's probably what he's looking for. But in the meantime, if he can farm an item or 2, great. It'll help him scale up into the late game.
Hey, well, I mean, so far so good. I mean, I do understand the reason why people want to have the Archangels, because then that means you don't have to feed Tahm Kench AP. You can instead feed him tank stats. So a lot of people feel like you get to double dip in that sense, which and he prints you more items to solve those problems later on anyways. So I get why a lot of people love that item combination. And if you can get a Gunblade, if this is a sword or any other way that you can get the healing onto it, Tahm Kench becomes quite a force to be reckoned with. And the only way it feels like you can deal with him is to play a Colossus in front of him and hope that Tahm Kench continually licks the Scion or the Galio.
Leading back to one of our previous conversations, by the way, we saw Becca's board. She's still level 6. And so still being level 6 at this point, I think shows how flawed that board and that comp is at this point. If you're not already level 7 by this point, you're behind the curve for what the power of that comp can provide. And so we're seeing Becca kind of struggle, be at 23 health here, despite having all those 3-star units.
Yeah, it's definitely a struggle right now, and it stinks. I've seen a lot of people play the Protector reroll. I've seen them easily cruise the top 2. Emily did it in their first game in this tournament, and Becca looks like right now she's primed for a bot 2 at the moment, but we'll see as we go into Radiance's board and checking with him. Ray had a fantastic first couple games, playing quite fluidly. It looks like he's doing like an Innovator Urgot board variation, utilizing the fact that he's an extra slot and a Tome of Traits, which got him a Clockwork emblem. But I do feel like he's running into an awkward spot where he has to figure out what his comp can do and what it's good at. Ends up going to the front line, Jace. I do wonder if long-term he even wants to replace his Urgot and just give these items to either Fiora or a Jace and play from there. I know that Ray's very fond of Fiora carry at the moment, and his items do scream that way, but his Urgot gets immediately pulled by the Blitzcrank hook. That's not going to help him win the fight, and he's going up against Keen, who has double Archangel Staff on this. Tahm Kench is going to print more golden items.
Yeah, the thing he does have going for him here, though, is we talked about how Stand United, especially Stand United 1, is very valuable here. This is giving his team an extra 21 AD and AP, and that's a lot, right? Especially when you look at a champion like Urgot, who scales off both the AD and the AP. He can do some pretty powerful things with that much extra AD and AP, not to mention the Lissandra is doing that as well, the Braum, and so there's a lot of extra power behind this comp. I would like to see 5 Innovator go in, and on the other side, we see Soju with 9 Chemtech. This is really cool to see.
Whoa. Okay, 9 Chemtech. So when you get 9 Chemtech online, you get, let's see here, you get 125% attack speed and 12% health regeneration for 8 seconds on top of the usual buffs. That's crazy.
Yeah, the health regeneration is the thing to watch. Like, look at this Victor's health, and he's got Morello on him. It'll just keep his team alive for so long. And we saw Soju do this. It was interesting. If you were watching Soju on stream right before the tournament, he was playing a Tahm Kench game where he kind of dominated with a Tahm Kench. He used Quicksilver because the Tahm Kench can't be stopped. The 9 Chemtech, this Tahm Kench is not going to die. This Tahm Kench is going to farm him a lot of items, and he's going to scale into infinity. And I think we're seeing the power of Tahm Kench, a carry that I think a lot of people were sleeping on at the start of the set. But now that people have figured out how to use him and figured out the infinite value he creates, he's just so strong in the late game.
Yeah. And I love that there's no socialite involved in this as well, because it gives him positional flexibility. There is counterplay to Tahm Kench, as we mentioned. He can't really swallow, for example, Colossus units, and therefore can struggle if you position against him. But now he gets some flexibility with how he goes for it. And now we'll see whether or not he can hold up against Raiders, who does have a really strong board. I was really underestimating the power that Stand United. His Urgot was doing a lot of damage. Does seem to be kind of focusing this Tahm Kench, which did end up firing off one of these items. Tahm Kench goes ahead and devours the Urgot as well, but Urgot pops back out and finishes what he started. And Ray is doing a really good job. That new recruit giving an extra unit to give him more synergies is really paying off.
Yeah, it's interesting because you see that the one thing that can really stop that Tahm Kench is just the high DPS of an Urgot, and so the positioning there wasn't great for Soju. But you were seeing that 12% healing. It was healing for 288 a second, which was really good. By the way, I think I was gonna say we have a 7 Mercenary player.
Yes, we do. Kaflo is playing 7 Mercenaries, which is very unusual, and I've only played 7 Mercenaries one time, and let me tell you, it was really crazy. There was so much stuff going on. But when you look at this, there's even more. He has a Tactician's Crown. He's got a 2-star Thief's Gloves. Tahm Kench with a Death Cap and a Chalice on it. A lot of AP going in this direction. He's already level 9. He hasn't lost in 9 rounds. Can anybody stop Kaflo? You called it, Mort. You said it was going to be a first place, and everything is pointing in that direction. Everybody else is playing for second. Kiyun in 5th place right now. Rue and Becca just died previously, and now he finds a pair of Kaisa, 1 away from fully capping his board.
Yeah, like I said, with this much power, and again, if every round he wins, he's generating what could be an extra item. It is possible to get more Tactician's Crowns from 7 Mercenary if you win these fights. He's got an Urgot with just amazing items that can't be stopped. He's got the Kaisa to apply the early Morello. He just took this and went with it. And it looks like did swap out the 7 Mercenary, though. That's, so a little less items here. But with this endgame state, he's still going to be so powerful. 7 Mercenary would probably be a little too greedy.
Current Max, a player we haven't actually really caught up with, a person who was also playing Mercenaries in the very beginning of the game, also streaking, and we'll see whether or not he can hold up to that, because I don't know. I think barring any 3-star 4 costs, Kaflo looks quite unstoppable. And even then, I'm still not entirely sure, because the unit quality is so high, and if he has like a 2-star Kaisa, and he has like 2 Tactician's Crowns, can that actually reasonably be enough to to stop this kind of board and momentum coming out from Koflo. Going up against Radiance's board, seeing if he can take him out or actually put enough pressure because he has too much HP. So Ray looks like he's guaranteed top 4. But it doesn't seem like he's just got enough to even deal with that Urgot in the back. You mentioned that there's just so much stuff that Ray has to cut through, and he keeps winning by such an overwhelming amount. Ray takes another big loss.
Yeah, the one thing I could see too is like he still has a GA on the front line on looked like I believe it was a Gangplank. Moving that over to the Kai'Sa will give him that Morello GA Kai'Sa that everyone's really hyped about at the end here. But it is going to come down to the 6 Academy board on the other side with that Academy Fiora, and we've talked about how Academy spat on Fiora, especially because Fiora scales with both AD and AP. The AP scales the true damage, the AD scales the base damage, and so that Fiora is going to unleash and has the Titanic Force, giving it even more AD. That is a very scary Fiora on the other side.
And Kurum also has, dodged Koflo very clearly. If Koflo is on a 10-round win streak. So see how far he can take this. Only 2 Socialite, not the full 3. Has a Tactician's Crown as well. With this, Banshee's Claw can attach it to Yuumi and give a little bit of CC immunity temporarily to his opponents. But in terms of the quality of the board, this doesn't look like top 1 material. This looks like he's just going to repeatedly lose to Koflo. So how does Kurum choose to scale this? Is he going to go to 9 at 6-2, or is he going to roll it down and try to 3-star 4 cost? Either way, it does feel like he's on borrowed time, as now the time of his reckoning has arrived. He has to deal with it, and a great Zephyr to try to take out this Fiora for the first few seconds of the fight. And by the time she joins, half her team is dead. She's going to try to ramp up the Blade Wall to be able to at least kill 1 unit. Kurum takes out, he gets half his life taken out here. And I guess he's going to go to 9 and try to see if he can find any way to scale his comp further.
I was going to say, the one thing that could really counter this Fiora really hard is CC, and Tahm Kench, a scaled Tahm Kench, has an abundance of that. And we saw there, sure enough, we got down to that final moment where Fiora was getting ready to try to do a 1v9 and just got immediately eaten and consumed, and that was that. And so, if anything here, this shows the power of Zephyr at this point on that Socialite square, because that Fiora does need that Socialite square to really ramp up, but it gets Zephyr'd, and what are you going to do? And so I think I want to see this fight just to show how good a Fiora can be. You're seeing, like, those autos are massive. Look at that damage. 6 Academy has that Titanic Crown, but as soon as it got CC'd and that Urgot got on it, that was it. That's the danger of running one of those, sort of fragile Fiora carries. And so Urgot with that Chemtech, on the other hand, though, is just not taking damage.
Yeah, I'm actually quite impressed. This Titan's Resolve has done a lot of work getting the Urgot a good mixture of tankiness and stats all around. And because Ray has done a good job protecting it, the Urgot ends up cleaning it up. Now, that being said, Ray did lose at the hands of Koflo, and then Kurum just beat Radiance's Ghost, which means that there's a very, very high chance that Kurum and Ray will face off mano-a-mano, and the winner will take 2nd place to Koflo, because again, I don't think anybody's going to be taking down this comp anytime soon. Koflo just doesn't even know where to place his items. He's running out of places to actually place items in a reasonable manner here, Mort.
Yep, you can see he even reforged his Mercenary emblem and got Innovator, which is not particularly helpful. But look at these traits, by the way. That is a lot of traits. That is a lot of value. Has a 2-star Kai'Sa, has the Urgot with 5 Chemtech. Like, these, again, I called it 14 rounds ago. Here we are. That 50 gold cash out was massive.
Yeah, that moment when Stand United 1 is worth more than, like, Nice Edge 3.
Yep.
It just has so many synergy bars activated because of the legendaries going all the way. It doesn't even fit on the screen at the moment. So Kurum and Ray are playing right now for 2nd place. And Ray does get the win. Kurum out in 3rd. A solid game from Kurum X. But even more solid from Raditz. Raditz, a 2nd place got to feel like a 1st place in this situation when you see Koflo's board state. I don't think there's anything that he can really do. So it really comes down to whether or not Ray hits something miraculous to bail him out. But I'm pretty sure we're locked in for the top 2 of this game.
I believe this is where, and again, I'll use the, if the kids would say, this was a FF to save mental. This is definitely not, look at that, another Tactician's Crown just to seal the deal here. Oh, this board is insane.
11. He has to go pick it up, right? I don't know. I think it's actually still counting anyway, so it's fine. Oh my goodness gracious. And the kitchen sink, too.
Here, have a second Mundo for no reason.
Not Runan's Mundo. We're playing AD Mundo has reached that point of the game. And at this point, Raditz just gotta. You can go ahead and save the mental on this point. He got 10-0'd. It wasn't close, and that's gonna wrap it up. Here for Kaflo putting on quite a show with 2/3 a second place and now a first place from the open qualifier.